and I'll let you guys take it from here. Enjoy.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Hey, Brian. So good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a bit.
It's been 24 hours, 24 hours. So congrats on your new role. Before we get into kind of how things have affected us during the pandemic, tell us the best kept secret. What has BlackBerry been doing the last few years, and how have you evolved from a device company that, Obama was so loyal to the company that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think, given our history, given our heritage, I mean, we're immediately known for the iconic device. I mean, we single-handedly invented the mobile workforce, which is pretty amazing. But the reason those devices were so powerful, which is kind of a secret, if you will, is because of the security. The QWERTY keyboard made it highly, highly productive. But, the reason it was so productive is because of that security. So what we've done over the past several years is taken that security, married that with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and now we're baking that into everything. And when I say everything, I literally mean everything. I mean, we're in mobile devices, we're in 175 million cars on the road, we're in streetlights, we're in the International Space Station. So it's really taking that heritage of security, marrying it with artificial intelligence, and then offering that to the world to make the world much more safe and much more secure.
Awesome. So, and how did the company get into the cybersecurity sector, and what should we know as consumers about the technology?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of springboarded from the device. Not too long ago, we acquired a company called Cylance, which is really known for AI and machine learning. And it's a different spin on security. I mean, historically, security has always been reactive, not really preventative. So adding in that layer of machine learning and artificial intelligence, instead of one thing being infected, nothing really gets infected. And I think, the big play with BlackBerry is this idea of intelligence, like our tagline is intelligent security everywhere. And it's really that preventative model. Versus, constantly being reactive, which I think that's been kind of the game of security for, past 10 to 20 years. It's all about what it stops. We want to move that to be more preventative.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit. So you've been in the role for 6 months. So as the VP of corporate marketing for this iconic brand, what were some of the challenges you face when you started during the pandemic, and how are you overcoming them?
Yeah, so strange times for sure. So I started interviewing in person in January with BlackBerry. And then we went into the lockdown in March, and some things were put on hold. And then I reconnected them. It was right around May when they had made me the offer. And then, went in, did all the onboarding and all that good stuff. But, it's really tough because I've not met my team. Everything is through video. I'm a people person. I like being in an office. So, that's pretty tough. But, what's interesting with BlackBerry, if you look at our heritage, we're all about mobility and remote work. So I think for us, this has been easier, I think, than a lot of companies. We have the tools in place. We have the systems in place because we did this a long, long time ago. So in a way, we were kind of prepared for, what is COVID.
Yeah. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this story, but when you and I chatted a couple of days ago, I know your background is on the agency side like me, and then you went to the client side and played a couple of key, you're a creative person. Can you talk about your PC versus Mac story? Coming into a PC company?
Well, I mean, it was interesting. So Mark Wilson, our CMO and my boss, when I was chatting with him, it's just like, okay, well, I need a Mac. And it's like, oh, okay. That's right. You're a creative guy. And I'm like, yeah, I think if I were given a PC, I wouldn't even know how to turn it on. So yes, absolutely Mac guy. And, that's just given my background going to design school and all that good stuff. But yeah, I've always been a Mac guy, but yes, I have a Mac to do my job at BlackBerry.
Yeah. So before we get to kind of what's on the horizon, can you talk a little bit about the BlackBerry and TELUS partnership on the critical event management across Canada? I think that's just such an important story about how the access you gave to emergency preparedness to keep residents and employees safe.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, security is core to everything we do. If you look at QNX with embedded security or, our Spark platform, any of that stuff, security is core to everything that we do right now. And that's mainly our ad hoc product that is part of that partnership. And it's really about delivering the best connectivity. And the ad hoc product itself is all about secure crisis communications. Lots and lots of governments use this, local and federal governments. TELUS obviously is using that. And it's really an alert platform about severe weather or cybersecurity attacks or man-made incidences. A lot of the messaging about COVID is coming through that platform. But the whole idea is to alert when there is an issue, then collect information about that, and then connect with the individuals that might be involved with that. But it's a super, super powerful platform. I was talking to the gentleman who kind of runs it, and we've been talking about some campaigns that we have coming up. Like when you talk about climate change and flooding on the east and fires on the west, I mean, that's just like a hot spot for this product. But it's really about keeping people safe through secure crisis communication.
Cool. Yeah, that's super important. So you mentioned campaigns. I know that you've got a lot coming up on the horizon, regarding the brand, and we can talk a little bit about that without giving away any top secrets. But as an organization, what's been the biggest change during the pandemic, and how have you shifted gears as it relates to marketing efforts? Are you using social, digital, influencers, et cetera?
Yeah, I've been kind of heads down on the rebrand mainly. I mean, that's what I was hired to do, and then kind of build out the marketing team. So that's been my world for a while. But not too long ago, I was on a call with Just Media, who's our media partner, and I was talking to Brandon, who's the CEO there, and we're kind of talking like, in the age of COVID, like what does media consumption look like? How are you targeting, your customer base? And in a way, I told him, the world's gotten kind of smaller. If you think about marketing or advertising in the past, you might get in your car, you turn on your radio. Okay, there's a radio spot. You get on the freeway, you see a billboard. It's gotten much, much more contained working from home. And now it's connected TV. Obviously, we really, really over-rotate on digital because we can track all that stuff. But it's really reduced the world that people live in. So going from connected TV to the laptop to the phone, and really understanding that world and how they're consuming media and what is the engagement levels. That's not saying like, billboards and stuff like that are off the table, but the world to reach your audience has become much, much smaller, and in a way, much, much more focused.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been such an inversion versus TV versus social and digital, and we can get into this later, but, that's what we really focus on at Influential. And so can you talk a bit about the rebrand and kind of what's up and coming, and what have you been doing since you started?
Not a lot of sleep.
What the hell have you been doing?
I'm kidding. No, so I have to say, like, this is kind of the dream job for me. It's pretty remarkable in the sense it's such an iconic name. Like in talking to John Chen, our CEO, there's never ever been a negative connotation about BlackBerry. I mean, people love their BlackBerries. So to rebrand and reposition such an iconic company where everybody loved, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a pretty amazing gig. But what's been kind of fascinating, and there's lots of ways to go through a rebrand, but I think what myself and Mark, the CMO, really identified was there was some confusion in the market as to what we do and where we are going. So we have to shift that perception, and to me, that's all built on story. Like, we need to change the storyline of the company, and how do we educate the market on that? So we really started with the story of the company first. Maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a writer by trade, but that's where we started. And I told Mark CMO, I said, if we can nail that, if we can get the sales team reading from that script, if we can get everybody in the company kind of like reciting that story and maintaining that consistency throughout all of our marketing, I think we'll be on to something. So over the course of 4 or 5 weeks, we wrote a couple of different storylines, a couple of different narratives, shared that with John, our CEO. And after 3 meetings, this is it. Let's move forward with that. And it's like, oh my gosh, wow, that was pretty amazing. So we locked the story in, which is really, really important. We started bouncing that off of analysts, customers, things of that nature. And it really started to resonate, this idea of taking security you held in the palm of your hand and now putting it into everything you touch. It's really, really simple. It moves, from the heritage of BlackBerry and actually shows the market where we're headed, which I think is pretty interesting. And then from there, we went into the design exercise. That was a 6-week process. We engaged 2 agencies because my team was focused on our security summit, which is a big, big deal for us. Engaged 2 agencies, First Person, San Francisco based, and Division of Labor, who's based in Sausalito. Went through the design process. Mark and I met on a weekly basis. And then we presented those 3 directions to John. He liked number 1, he liked number 3, we liked number 1, we liked number 3, shared that internally. We went with option number 1. And now it's probably in the biggest lift phase, which is how do you roll this thing out? And we just had a meeting on Monday. We mapped it out to 4 phases. It's roughly 10 to 12 month process. Q1 being a big lift, we will be in marketing Q1. And that's kind of broad reach, because if you think about where BlackBerry was and where BlackBerry is going, we've done the dual pivot. We've gone from consumer brand to enterprise. Okay, that's shift number 1. And from that point, handheld to software, which is from tangible to intangible. So we have to really tell 2 stories. So we're going to go broad reach media with a lot of that, because again, it's this perception shift that we have to achieve. Obviously, lots of digital. We're going to look at television. We're going to look at traditional print and things of that nature. But Q1 will be a big lift for us from a media perspective. And then it's just pushing it out to everything we do, from a website to social, making sure that the sales team is read in on it. All of our partners are read in on it. So this is kind of this is where the work really begins, I guess. But no, I mean, it's really exciting. The process has been amazing. Everybody internally has really embraced this. Obviously, there's a need for it, for a consistent story throughout the entire organization. And now it's like, I'm ready to give birth to this baby and just see it out in the wild.
That's awesome. Well, congrats. It sounds like you've gotten a lot done in a short amount of time. You and I also discussed the importance of data. And this kind of piggybacks on the last chat that Tal just went through. But how important is data to you, and staying on top of consumer research, enterprise research, and trends within this vertical been? And how have competitor insights been valuable?
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. I mean, that's kind of your gauge or your pulse on the market for sure. We're lucky. We have an amazing internal research team that we turn to for a lot of this. We have really great agency partners. Obviously, being a tech company, like, data is imperative. I mean, we test everything. I'm closely aligned with the media team. How are things performing? Can we test messaging? Can we test visuals? All of that good stuff. I mean, it's all built around data. And I think with the brand, we're going to move into a pre and post brand study. We want to check out, perception, awareness, like all of that good stuff. There's no doubt we have a high recall value when it comes to unaided for sure, but we're known for handheld. So how do you start to move that? And we'll look at data and see how all of that is performing. But absolutely, I think in this day and age, if a company's not looking at data, you're probably not long for the world. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of this working from home during COVID. You started during COVID. I know you're a mobile first company, but what's been a key component of, successful methodologies and working from home with your teams and your agencies and your external partners, and what's been more challenging?
I mean, it's funny because it's one of the pillars of BlackBerry, that's trust. I totally trust the team. I mean, I'm really fortunate. I have an amazing team. We trust our agency partners. I think it's all built around trust and understanding. If there's no trust, it doesn't matter if you're in an office or remote. You're not going to really accomplish what you set out to do. And I think that's it's great because that is one of the pillars of the company: trust, safety, and security. But that's how we look at everything. Agency partners, employees, so on and so forth, and just trust that they'll be able to deliver on what they say they're going to deliver on.
Yeah, and I would imagine that kind of all the great work you've done and how complicated it's been and the learning curve you've had to go through, it sounds like communication and trust, obviously, as you mentioned, have been a key components. But can you go a little deeper into kind of what methodologies you've used for communication? And, you're going through, you've got these outside partners who are doing this really important creative and strategic work for you. What are some of the, levers you've pushed to keep people motivated and, working together?
Totally, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a lot of your standard stuff. It's one-on-ones. It's a lot of video conferences. We work in an agile fashion where we're just really connected with the team. There are multiple check-ins, and I also think like bringing teams together, whether everything is operating off of media and creative and planning and so on and so forth, but really looking at teams in various disciplines and bringing those teams together and having standing meetings. I think people aren't a big fan of meetings, but I think in this day and age, you have to have those things. If not, it's like, okay, you feel disconnected. What's going on over here? I don't know what's going on over there. And I think the more you have that, just the better, And I think it's also, within BlackBerry, it's kind of like removing some of those silos to make sure that the teams can feed off of each other. I had a call the other day, and as we're looking at our campaign structure, it's like, okay, I'm responsible for the brand up here, but as we get into a campaign level and then a demand level and some of the demand plays, how does all that work together? We have standing meetings with the demand team. Like how does all that fit together? Because it is a giant puzzle. And I think COVID has made it much, much more complicated because you just can't hop into a room and do a whiteboard session or bounce an idea off of somebody. And also like I try to make myself fairly accessible. Again, we have all the tools in place, whether that's BlackBerry Messenger, somebody can ping me on that, or throw a meeting on my calendar. Let's jump on video. Let's just bang something out. Let's jump on a phone call. But I think, in lieu of popping into a conference room and just ironing it out on a whiteboard, you just have to make yourself available, like no matter how busy it is. And then, us being a global company, there are time changes and all that good stuff. But then I also think like being respectful of people's time. Working parents with kids and all of that stuff. And that's also one of the great things about BlackBerry is there's just a high importance on work-life balance. And again, there's right now in the age of COVID, those lines have been blurred. Like home is work, work is home. And I think respecting those boundaries, that's really, really important as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a successful recipe. So how have you stayed motivated? I know you've started in a new role and that's exciting, but what's been a key motivator that gets you up each morning during these unprecedented times?
Well, I think some of it is I love what I do. I feel very fortunate to do what I do. Where what's the saying or the adage, like, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But I think for me, it's really three things. And I'm a pretty simple person here. First and foremost, it's the brand. It is BlackBerry. And I said early on, this is such a massive opportunity. I consider myself really, really lucky to kind of rebrand this organization and create some consistency. The opportunity is just ginormous, to start with the story. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is the soul of the organization. And then I think it's the team. I have a great team at all levels. I have access to people that matter. And, team is just paramount. I just have folks that I can rely on from a media perspective, from a creative perspective, just across the board. But I'd say those are the three big things. It's the team, it's the opportunity, and it is the BlackBerry brand. And then on top of that, I just enjoy doing what I do.
Cool. How do you stay motivated at home? Coffee?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I just got a new espresso machine, so it's just like, wow, all right. A lot of different stuff. Being a creative person, I believe inspiration and ideas and all that can come from different places. If that's listening to a podcast, if that's, reading a story online, if that's watching a movie at the end of the day, but finding sources that just kind of energize you. I mean, it's really tough, in this day and age. I live in San Francisco, and it's like the thing that really, really, really sucks is like going into a restaurant and having that experience. Like experiences are really, really limited in this day and age, but like getting out and going on a walk, like just clearing your head, I think that's really important. And I tell my team all the time, because there is like, work is home and home is work. It's like block off your calendar for an hour, get out for a walk, clear your head, pick up a book, go online, like do something to check out. And I think that's so important, just clear your brain, because if not, I mean, we've all seen this before. It's like you look at the clock and it's like 6 o'clock and you haven't even moved. And it's like, wow, okay, like I haven't even gotten out of my seat. So I really encourage that, kind of get out and do what you can. And, I mean, obviously be safe. But, back to kind of the media thing, like I think our world has just become smaller and more compressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great input. So you mentioned, your background, that was a BlackBerry pun. Your background, you're a creative guy, but in working with you in your other roles, you've always been a visionary, and now as VP of corporate marketing, how have you been able to keep up with a quality design aesthetic across digital and across the brand? And really, I would imagine that BlackBerry is somewhat of a traditional company when it comes to marketing. So bringing someone in like yourself, who's got more of that design aesthetic, how have you been able to pull that through?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things at play. And I mean, in this day and age, design matters. Like, I mean, it's kind of all the way back to the Bauhaus philosophy, where it's form and function. It has to look good and it actually has to work. But from a design perspective, I mean, I'm very, very fortunate. I have a great team of designers that I work with. We have agencies that are great designers. But, a lot of it starts with the team, and I think bringing on people that are great at what they do. But the other thing is, having, we have a weekly creative meeting that we check in on projects, and we kind of discuss what's going on, and we might share, hey, look, did you guys see this thing in market? Did you see this piece of design? Oh my gosh, have you seen this TV spot? So I think even though we are a fairly traditional organization where, okay, yeah, it is marketing at the end of the day, still design matters, story matters, high creative output matters. And, I will, give a high five to Mark Wilson, our CMO, bringing somebody in like me. And I think creative people are inherently problem solvers, whether that's like a campaign structure, a brand, a story, or any of that stuff. We're really good at solving problems and figuring out how things fit together. But also, I think bringing a creative person in, as the VP of corporate marketing, there's going to be a high demand on quality of output. Yeah. That is it, if you think about our tagline, intelligent security everywhere, is it intelligently designed? Is it intelligently written? And that's everything. We're going to filter everything we do through those three words. And I think by hiring a creative, everything will have that high level of polish. It will be story driven because, we're starting with story as we rebrand the organization. But I think for anybody in the creative field, I mean, there's such an amazing opportunity out there right now, because if you think about companies, they're hiring creatives. When I got in the business, it was either agencies or design firms that you went to. And now there's more and more companies realizing, oh my gosh, design matters. Like I have to bring these people in. And I think the more of those people you get, the more aesthetically pleasing the design is going to be, the better the UX is going to be, the better the overall experience from learning about the product or the brand itself to buying it to using it. It's just going to get more and more important as time rolls on, because, if you can look at Nest and my gosh, it's a thermostat, it's beautifully designed. People love that stuff. It's just going to get more and more important for these organizations to get on board with great design.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. Before we've got lots of questions, but before we open it up to the audience, what's one thing or a couple of things you're looking forward to in the upcoming year, in 2021? We all have such high hopes, both in your work and on a personal level.
I mean, I can't wait to get back to traveling. My wife and I were planning a trip before COVID hit. I mean, I'm sure that's true with everybody. I'm looking forward. Like it's funny as we're rolling the brand out. We had a conversation the other day. It's just like, okay, TV. Okay, yeah, we could do TV now, but shooting from scratch is a safety concern. I mean, going on production. My push was, why don't we wait until COVID is over and we can shoot from scratch? That's one of the things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to getting into an office and I do go in one day a week, but actually meeting my team, actually hanging out with people again. Because I literally have not met my team. It's just like, all right, you're just in a box on my laptop. But all of that I think most people are looking forward to, but yeah, pushing out the brand, but just really building it in a great way, and then just moving beyond COVID, I think, just like everybody is looking forward to.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to go to questions, if that's okay, unless there's anything else you want to share. All right. So this is surrounding kind of data and research. What are some long-term research methods you think brands can take advantage on based on insights from this year and some of the short-term research insights we could benefit from?
Yeah, with COVID, is it going to go away? Probably not. But again, I think it goes back to, and this is the thing that we've unearthed, is like just the world getting smaller. Like, how do you use digital in effective manners? Like, how do you connect all those customer touch points? And then I think long term, just kind of optimizing all of that. Obviously there's a short-term impact and then a long-term impact. And the thing that we've really been like zeroing in on is share of voice from a reputation standpoint. Can we raise that, through SEM, through the brand, through basically everything? And I think we'll get there, because these brands are built, and it's no science formula. It's really a consistent story, consistent design told over time. And that time factor is the one thing you really, really can't truncate. And that's how you build brand equity. But I think measuring that from a data standpoint, doing the awareness studies that we've been doing, making sure things are tracking properly, and then just building upon that. And, it's not science or anything. Like, the things are working, just do more of that. The things that aren't working, you test and you learn. And that's kind of the short term.
Yeah. What are some brands that you think have kind of adapted to COVID times well, both, digitally and marketing wise?
A lot of direct consumer, no doubt about it. That's a big thing right now. I think, Amazon, of course, and kind of playing off that. I think where brands can do it wrong is when they prey on that stuff. And I think that's one thing that we've done a really good job of, in, like, if you look at security, and I think that's one thing that the world doesn't want to hear right now, is this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or any company that kind of plays off of that. I think people write them off, or it lands on deaf ears. As we kind of went into the rebrand, kind of looking at the security space, and I really equate it to health insurance. It's this fear-based approach, which is just a no-no in the age of COVID. Like, don't do it. And in health insurance, it's like, if you fall, you break your leg, you're not insured, you go bankrupt. Okay, great, thank you. I feel so much better about myself. But in the security space, it's the same play. It's, okay, you don't have security in place, you're going to get attacked, you're going to be held for ransom, and you're going to go bankrupt. And I think in the age of COVID, like, brands can't go down that path. They just can't. And for me, being hypersensitive and being a marketer, if I see anything like that, I'm instantly blocking you. I'm dismissing you. Just don't even go near it. And as we started kind of talking about the brand, and it was interesting because I have a setup slide even before I get in the story, and it's the competitor's messaging and it's our messaging. And if they're about what you stop and kind of just like this fear mongering, we're about liberation and confidence. And it's really the polar opposite of how a lot of these companies talk. And as we were walking the analysts through some of this stuff, they were like, oh my gosh, that's so refreshing. But also, I think brands that come out with a positive message in the age of COVID, it's just going to immediately cut through the clutter. nobody wants to turn on the news anymore. It's just like, just stop, stop, stop. But if you're talking about liberation and confidence and safety, it's like, okay, I might actually listen to you. So I think that's really important. And I think the brands that are succeeding are the brands that really don't up level that fear factor, if you will, but ones that are talking about, oh, we can make things better. We can make things easier. And I think those are the brands that ultimately will succeed and are succeeding.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And, I think this other question, I think I know the answer to this, but, and you answered it just a little bit now, but, how important is storytelling in brand marketing campaigns now? And what do you predict is the conversations are going to be for consumers in 2021?
I mean, I'm biased. I'm a writer by trade. But it's interesting. I mean, all the way back to cave people. I mean, people love a good story. Like they just love a good story. And I think if brands, and it's not manufactured story. I think it needs to be authentic to who the company is and what they can deliver on. And I think if you can figure that out, you can figure out a lot. And again, I said early on that there's a lot of ways to rebrand a company. I think a lot of people or a lot of companies instantly go to, oh, let's just look at design. Okay, it's a little superficial. I'm not knocking design. I mean, it's very, very important. But if you can drill down to the essence and the soul of the company through a story, to me, that is just so important, because you provide a script, if you will, for the sales team to walk into a new customer and talk about what you do. You provide a script to the market. And this is something that we're in the midst of right now, is a brand ambassador program, and really, really energizing the employees. I mean, we have 3,500 employees. If they're all reciting the same story and sharing that through social, that becomes a media channel. That's so important. But to me, like, it goes back to everything. It's just like, all right, tell me what you do, what are you about? That's all story driven. And I think it's important. And, to me, it goes all the way back to, the creative revolution that Dole, Dana, and Bernbach started. I mean, Bill Bernbach was a writer. I mean, the story of Volkswagen, like, oh my gosh, like those have stood the test of time. And I think story is just really, really important. And, again, hats off to BlackBerry for kind of buying what I laid out. And it's like, let's start with story. Let's shift that perception in the market, and let's tell an awesome story the world is waiting for. So I don't think that's going to change. I don't. And I think if brands can understand that really, 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 really quickly, and weave a narrative that works from the top to the bottom that everybody can rally around and support, I think that's just going to be ongoing, now and way into the future.
Yeah, great. And you brought up an interesting point, and this is related to this final question. That doing TV shoots right now, or any kind of physical production for marketing is, very dangerous, and there's going to be limitations on it. How have you seen kind of digital and the influencer marketing grow, and are there any influencers that you think have done it well and that you follow?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Definitely in the world of fashion, because I'm kind of a fashion geek. I can actually spin out on this.
Do it.
Okay, so there is a fashion brand that I love because I'm a weird art school kid and a goth kid, which is Rick Owens, and I think he doesn't advertise at all. But one thing that he's done, if you think about the industry of fashion, Dove has done it a little differently with showing real people, but so long it's been about beautiful people, and it's just like, okay, like, do I look like that person? No. Mm-hmm. But Rick has been just I think, given his audience, understands like the buyers of his clothing are kind of a weird artsy type. But there's this musician called Ghostmane, and it's a weird concoction of like black metal music and hip hop. But he was kind of an underground musician, and Rick has kind of brought him to the surface, and now he's like a model on some of his runway shows. And it's just like, oh my gosh, but only his underground, like, diehard audience for Rick Owens would understand that. But I'm like, okay, here's a guy who's done his homework, understands his audience and his customer base, and has unearthed this person that probably the mass world doesn't even know, but the buyers of that clothing, it's like, oh my gosh, and is probably going to help, kind of make his music career even bigger than what it was. And I think he's done a really, really good job of that. But I think if brands can kind of figure out like, okay, really like truly, who is their customer? What does their customer really follow? What are those triggers? What are the things they absolutely love, and build worlds around that? I think it just does immense things for a brand. But that's me kind of spinning out on the weird world of fashion. But I mean, you can do that at a macro level. You can do it at a lot of different levels, but really understanding your target and what makes them tick, I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's a great way to end this. Really interesting. I'd forgotten about Rick Owens, but yeah.
I mean,
awesome.
tried and true to his belief, unwavering in his delivery, and just, I mean, really just understanding who his core customer base is. It's, yeah, and I mean that. Obviously, I mean, with any brand, you have to deliver a great product, but just understanding who the target audience is. And then building worlds around that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Brian. This has been fun. Chris, do you have anything to add, or?
Well, I was just going to say, I absolutely love that parallel. Rick Owens is one of the best designers out there. But funny enough, I come from the fashion world. I was the CMO of Von Dutch years ago, back with the trucker hat. Yeah, and so that office, the Von Dutch office that was on La Brea, is now the Rick Owens office. So super cool. I know.
That's awesome.
I've worked within the same walls as the man. He is a legend. I love your energy, Brian. I think that you bring such a great creativity to what you do. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on what BlackBerry is doing in the near future. I think you guys are going to do some amazing things, and I think that you're going to be a force to be reckoned with there. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Laura, thank you for bringing Brian. For you helping me with this and bringing many more people next year. You rock on stage as well. So I'm looking forward to hopefully having you back in the very, very near future. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful